Netflix have another animated hit on their hands with Hilda, a series about a young girl and her adventures with her friends in a world of mythic wonder. Despite encounters with creatures from myth and legend, Hilda is a show filled with relatable characters. So just how did the creators manage that? I'm Welshie, welcome to Theory Pop. The Hilda animated series is based on the graphic novels of the same name by Luke Pearson. The show follows the titular character of Hilda, a young girl who lives with her mum and goes on fantastic adventures. After living in the wilderness her entire life, Hilda and her mum move to the city of Trollberg when their home is destroyed. Although she no longer lives amongst the fantastic creatures and wildlife of the wilderness, Hilda still manages to find adventure in the city. She is a relatable character to the audience, despite her encounters with trolls, thunderbirds and weather spirits, worrying about more mundane things like making friends and moving home. So how did Pearson and the team at Silvergate get that fine balance between fantasy and relatability right? Well, at first they didn't. On October 20th, Luke Pearson held a seminar at Nottingham Comic Con in the UK, discussing the Hilda graphic novels and the Netflix series. During the session, Pearson revealed some interesting pieces of information around the development of the character and her world. I was lucky enough to attend the seminar, but I didn't think to record the session at the time. But I did take a few notes. Pearson revealed that the decision to have Hilda move to Trollberg was partly due to the fact that he struggled to relate to the character. How many children actually live out in the wilderness, isolated from other people? Pearson was concerned that if he couldn't connect with Hilda, then his audience wouldn't be able to either. If kids couldn't identify with the character, they would not enjoy the stories and her adventures as much, and could lose interest in the series. So Pearson decided Hilda would move to the city. Moving to the city brought with it slightly more mundane worries for Hilda's character. She initially struggles to adapt to living in Trollberg, an environment totally different to the wide open spaces of the wilderness she grew up in. The city is dirtier, all the streets feel the same, and worst of all,
the trees are too small for climbing, and they built a wall to keep out anything interesting.
Hilda also has to worry about meeting children her own age and starting at a new school. These are concerns anyone can empathise with. Many children will move home with their parents, changing schools and meeting new kids. I can relate to this part of Hilda's character. When I was younger, I lived in the Welsh countryside. The nearest village was over a mile from my house, and the closest sizable town was more than 10 miles away. My weekends were filled with me and my brother walking through the fields of my grandfather's farm, climbing over hedges and exploring the woods near our house. It wasn't quite the isolation of the wilderness, but it was much more open and green than the city. I moved to a more built-up area when I was 12, and it was a stark change to the countryside I grew up in. My experiences made it easy for me to understand Hilda's experience of moving away from everything she'd ever known to a drastically different environment. Ensuring that Hilda was an empathetic character also influenced the introduction of the Sparrow Scouts. Pearson had actually been a scout during his childhood, and admitted that Hilda being enthusiastic, though not particularly good at earning badges, was partly based on his own experience in the Scouts. Pearson incorporated this into the character, making her feel more fleshed out and easier to relate with. This broadens the appeal of Hilda. There are over 500,000 youth members of Scouts in the UK, and 2.4 million in the Boy Scouts of America. That's not including organisations such as Girl Guides. Chances are a large part of the audience are either in a scouting organisation or were at some point. Those experiences of camping trips, fundraising and community projects are all memories that allow the audience to really connect to Hilda's character and her experiences. The showrunners also expanded the role of Hilda's friends Frida and David compared to the graphic novels. They welcome her into the Sparrow Scouts and soon become fast friends. Frida and David have an interesting perspective on the adventures that Hilda pulls them into. They are aware that creatures such as elves and trolls exist in the world, but they aren't used to encountering them. These kinds of encounters are completely new to them. David talks about how scared he gets of some of these outings with Hilda, and that's entirely reasonable. Trolls and Mara are pretty scary. The connection with these two characters helps the audience to relate to the show and the characters. While the fantastical elements are not totally alien to David and Frida, the direct encounters are a new experience for them, as well as for the audience. they help to ensure that the world of Hilda can be this amazing, fantastic place without alienating an audience that can't connect with it or the characters. The relationship between Hilda and her mum Joanna is presented in a positive, heartwarming manner. In the seminar, Pearson revealed that he wanted to only focus on the positive aspects of their relationship. Joanna is a single mother, but she and Hilda have a healthy mother-daughter relationship. She certainly worries about some of Hilda's adventures, like when her daughter was briefly carried off on the back of a giant thunderbird, but Joanna's usually more concerned with typical parental things, like how her daughter is getting on at school or if she's making any friends in the city. And then there are the things most adults can identify with, like having to give up a career you love and take a different job to guarantee a steady income. I mean, we've all been there, right? The creatures Hilda encounters are also portrayed in a way that makes them empathetic. Hilda's initial meeting with a troll is a terrifying ordeal as it chases her down a mountain, but it just needs her help removing a tormenting bell from its nose. In a later episode, a troll manages to find its way into the city, but instead of trying to harm humans, they just want to retrieve their missing child who had been accidentally kidnapped by David. The elves, initially invisible and aggressive towards Hilda and her mother, respect tradition and copious amounts of paperwork, and Alpha becomes one of Hilda's closest friends. We find the same with Raven the Thunderbird, the Lindworm, and the Weather Spirits. All of these amazing creatures are so much more than just wild animals or myths. They each have motivations and desires that help the audience connect with them. The world Hilda lives in is a huge part of what makes the series relatable. There are absolutely these fantasy elements inspired by the mythologies of various cultures, but there is plenty of everyday logic and activity that makes it feel so much more believable. Characters get stuck in queues of traffic, go to the shops, use computers and video cameras, attend school, or visit the library and use photocopiers. The people of Trollberg go about their lives much as anyone would, just with a slightly higher chance of meeting a fantasy creature than most of us. This is the genius behind Hilda, both the character and the series itself. This story about a young girl craving adventure who can make friends with almost anyone and anything occurs in a world full of believable characters and locations. The everyday and the mundane take place alongside the fantastic and the whimsical, creating a fine balance between the believable and the amazing. Hilda is one of my favourite shows, both charming and utterly brilliant, and I hope to see much more of it in the future. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video about the brilliant Hilda. What are your thoughts on the series? Have you read the original graphic novels by Luke Pearson? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more videos, click the box on the left, or click my face up above to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.